Laurel pulled off her knapsack and handed it to Romeo. She held her hand out to him and wriggled her fingers. "Hold me." "What?" She shook her hand at him. "Hold my hand, you moron. I want to get a better look." Their fingers entwined. She held on tight and braced her feet, then leaned as far forward as she could, peering into the water. "Wow, that looks like a thing, a greenstone thing." "It's a patu." He jerked her back. "Don't touch it." "Ouch, she nearly broke my arm." She pulled out of his grip. "We need to get the fuck out of here." "No, we have to go." "I just want to look at it." She wrapped a blade of harakeke around her hand, braced her feet apart again, and leaned forward. Her face was centimetres from the surface when she slipped. Then everything happened so fast it was a blur. Her face hit the water. Romeo splashed into the pool and grabbed her around the waist and hauled her out. With iridescent green flashing in the sun, a large feathered body hurtled out of the sky towards them, batting its wing and stabbing its beak. The bird scratched across his temple and her cheek in one slash. Then it soared in an arc above them and dove again. They screamed. Romeo picked her up, threw her over his shoulder and ran, battling his way through the harakeke blades that flicked against his face, arms and legs, the thump of his steps echoing through the trees. "No!" Laurel yelled when he broke through the bush and hurtled towards the river. He dropped her backpack on the bank and jumped high in the air before plummeting into the water. Laurel struggled to the surface, coughing and spluttering. "What the?" She kicked away from him, crawling through the current towards the bank, and dragged herself up out of the water. Gasping, she collapsed face down on the grass, then rolled over onto her back, scraping sodden wads of hair out of her face. She felt something hard in her back pocket and pulled it out. A whimper escaped her as she stared at the water streaming out of her destroyed piece of technology. "You killed my phone." "Why are you still carrying that stupid thing around?" he said. "It doesn't work here." "That doesn't mean you can murder it." "I'll get you another one." "Do you have any idea how much this cost?" Her voice got higher and tighter with every word. "Daddy imported it from Japan for me. This model won't be released here for another 18 months. "Daddy?" His brows shot up. "You call your father Daddy? Do you have a problem with that?" He started laughing. She threw the phone at him. It hit his shoulder and exploded into a mass of broken plastic components. He smirked and rubbed his other shoulder. Her cheek began to sting. She touched the wound and watery blood dripped down her fingers. She struggled to her feet, her teeth chattered together like castanets. "Get me the hell out of here." Robert was sitting at the kitchen table going through the receipts for his accountant. He glanced up as Laurel trudged through the back door. Her lips, pale blue and cold, quivered, and her teeth chattered noisily. "Shower?" "Down the hall, second on the left." She disappeared into the hall as Romeo dripped in. He looked at Robert, rolled his eyes and followed her. A door slammed, shaking the house. "I've left a towel and some clothes outside the door," Romeo said. "Go the hell away." "I'm sorry, okay?" 10 minutes later, Romeo came back into the kitchen, changed, drying his hair with a towel. Robert pushed a steaming cup of Milo towards him. "Swim?" "Accident." "You both fell in the water?" "No, I jumped in." Romeo sat at the table with her. He lifted the mug, pressing his hands against the side and blew across the surface. "I broke her phone." "Why?" "Just happened." Robert gave his nephew a pitying look. "Girls really don't like that sort of thing." "I know. They don't think it's funny." "Oh." Romeo rolled his eyes. "I know." Robert clapped the boy on the shoulder. Get used to this, boy, because 99% of the time some woman is going to be pissed off with you about something. Ahem. Laurel stood in the doorway. She wore Romeo's sweater and jeans. She was tall but only half the size of him, and his clothes hung on her. She'd stuck a large blue band-aid from the medicine cabinet over the scratch on her face and bundled her clothes together with a towel she had used. "May I use your dryer, please?" she asked Robert, ignoring Romeo. Robert stood up. "Sure, I'll show you," Romeo cut in. "Wash house is out the back." Oilskins and swan dries, bike helmets, tools and gardening implements hung from nails bashed into the walls. Gumboots, boots and shoes were scattered on the floor. The pungent odour of mildew, kerosene and perishing rubber fused with the sickly sweet aroma of washing powder. Against the far wall was a sink, an industrial-sized washing machine and a dryer. Laurel gestured towards the dryer. "Do you know how to use this?" Romeo's brows slid up. "Don't you?" "No." "Why not?" "We have a housekeeper." She stared at him defiantly. "Are you going to show me how to use this thing or not?" He folded his arms and leaned back against the sink, pretending to think. "Not?" He grinned. "I'm doing you a favour. You need to join the real world." "Can you just show me how to turn it on?" "Work it out." Laurel pushed an elaborate set of buttons, switched switches, opened and closed doors, but nothing. Sweating, she leaned forwards, her hands on the top of the machine, fighting the urge to kick it. "It might help if you turned it on at the wall." "What?" Laurel yelled, so loud the dogs penned at the bottom of the garden began to bark. He took her clothes out of the dryer and threw them into the washing machine along with his own, added powder and turned it on, and set it for a large wash. "Your clothes are muddy." "Aren't you supposed to separate out colours or something?" "So you're an expert now." He smacked the button and water started to gush into the machine. "What are you doing tomorrow?" "Nothing." "Do you want to go to Napier?" "Why?" "I've never been, so I'm going. Do you want to come?" She stared at him. "If you don't, just say so." "I never said I didn't want to go. A day out of this crap hole, of course I want to go." "Pick you up about 8? "Okay." He nodded towards the house. Robert said come in for feed.